Roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Here.
Mr. Cass,
Here.
Mr. Anderson,
Here.
Mr. Luer,
Here.
Mr. Kim,
Here.
Mrs. Gould. She just stepped out.
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner.
Here. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, upcoming special presentations. We have Dr. Cullers presenting in January on the district test scores. And we have two board members tonight who this is their last meeting. So we have a little parting gift. Mr. Luer. Mrs. Gould is our other member who had to, here she comes, right on cue, Mrs. Gould, thank you. Okay, and now on to Superintendent's comments. Dr. Forte.
Thank you. Let's start off with a short recap and update on our district goals. We have two goals this year. One is under something I'm working on pretty much. Not that we're all not working on all the same stuff, but Dr. Culls will speak about the other district goal in a minute. The first one was to successfully transition all students and staff back to 100% instruction, in-person instruction. So we had to create and implement a plan to provide services to the school community, address learning and social needs that may arise from the pandemic. The second part was to provide a robust summer program to address the learning and emotional needs of students. And at this time we were successful having everyone return to school, all staff and students. And our summer program is completed. There were, it was about double the amount of people that typically go to our summer program. And from what I saw and what Dr. Cullis saw and from what our staff, it seemed like the children were very excited about it. And I did see several staff members who said they were excited about it. Our little project update. We have the Lakeview roof, still a couple minor items, but for the most part, it's pretty much complete. There's a supply chain issue with a piece, with one of the parts that's needed. They're going to work on an alternate for that, and we should have it done soon, but there's still a couple things open. The Riverview HVAC, good news is the gym is reopened. It did reopen on Friday. It is usable. There's still some work being completed, and the majority of the work should be completed over the winter break. There's some duct work that has to be done and the demolition of the old system in the APR. But right now the heat in the gym is working, it's functional, and the PAL basketball is back in the gym today. So COVID, we are, last week was a tough one. We had 17 new cases throughout the week. As of Friday, we had 22 positive cases. So we were scrambling to get, coverage and doing all the things we needed to do, but we were also concerned that it was going to continue to grow. So the good news is that the amount of new cases today was less than that came off. So we're actually made a little bit of ground today. So we went from 22 positive cases on Friday, and now we have 19 total cases. We did reduce our quarantine from about 94 to about 84 right now. So we did have some success this week. We're hoping that we can still continue. We did work closely with the Department of Health last week on a conference call to go over how all these different cases. And some of the questions I've received is there some type of a percentage? It's not about a percentage. It's more about Department of Health is very concerned with cases that are not linked, meaning like 3 different cases, maybe from the same room, that don't have an outside link. That would mean that they would feel that it was spread in the class. That's the biggest concern, is to keep the spread of COVID out of the schools. It's been our goal since the first day in March 2020, and it's still our goal now, is to do everything we can to reduce the likelihood that COVID would spread in the classrooms or in any kind of district activities. So that's our main concern right now, but a short-term win right now, the fact that we did have a little bit of a reduction over the weekend. Hopefully we'll see that trend continue, and maybe we will go back down, stay positive. But again, it's working with the Department of Health, working with the families. The family's been great about communicating with the district and letting people know when there's a positive case at home or when students have symptoms. That's helped a lot. Our region activity too, for the first time since last year, the entire state is back in the orange or high level. And that does come with some changes. So now the quarantining rules are different when you're in the orange level than they are in the yellow. So that's all on our website, and I include it every week in the Friday updates. Also, just to let everybody know, our next Board of Ed meeting will be January 3rd. It's our reorganization meeting and the regular meeting. And that's it for my comments.
Thank you, Dr. Forte. Assistant Superintendent's comments, Dr. Cullis.
Sure. Just continuing on with our second goal, which is to always increase achievement for our students. That's a goal every year, and we pick a focus area. And this year, our focus area is in math, and we did purchase 3 new math programs to assist our students. One of them is called Dreambox. It's an online program that students can work through their skills at whatever level they're at, all the way up through 12th grade. So it gives an opportunity for students to fill in some of the gaps they may have in math, but also to continue to grow in the different areas. Each area, like it could be geometry, algebra, counting and cardinality, all of the different areas students can grow in differently in each one. So it gives that opportunity. We also are using Math 180 in 5th through 8th grade classes, where students are showing a need to have significant growth before going to high school so that they're ready for Algebra 1. So that is really our goal, is to get all students ready for Algebra 1. The high school has changed their programming, and now all students, no matter what level, if they have not already completed Algebra 1 in middle school, would take it as a 9th grader. That's about 75% of our students. They used to offer programs that would run over 2 years, but now they only have the 1-year program, no matter what level the student is at. So we're just trying to really prepare our students to be ready for that change. We did also purchase some additional manipulatives for our classroom so that each student could have their own manipulative sets and would not be exchanging with other students. So that we did not have, or we haven't had.
Dr.
NJSA.
Cullis, just hold on a minute. Try to hold your thought. We're having a little technical difficulty. Just hold your thoughts for a minute.
We're just going to give them another minute or two to troubleshoot, and then we'll continue with the meeting, guys. Thanks for your patience. Okay, so we're going to continue with the meeting, and unfortunately, it seems like people cannot watch live right now, but it seems like it is recording, and we will post that recording as soon as possible. And Dr. Cullis, we're going to go back to you for continuation of Assistant Superintendent's comments. Sorry for the interruption.
No problem. So picking up with the Dream Box, so we have that program from 1st grade through 8th grade. We also have access to it for kindergarten if parents would like to have that. They can participate in that and use that program at school and at home as well. So you do have access to that, and we have a goal of 1 hour per week of trying to use that program. Last year we did offer the Denville Accelerated Learning Academy, and we will be offering that again this summer. So we do have an expanded summer program that's again going to be 6 weeks, and we're going to come out with the information probably late January. So probably about the same time that other camps are rolling out information, you'll get the information so you can make a decision if this is a program that you would like to participate in. My other comment, unfortunately, is not great news. I just wanted to let people know that in recent months, we've been made aware of a small number of isolated instances when highly offensive language and symbols were used around the town of Denville and in our schools. Although infrequent, even one use of a racial, cultural, religious, or gender-related slur in any form is unacceptable and does not live up to the values of the Denville Township School District. Our schools need to be a safe and welcoming space for everyone. Please use this opportunity to discuss with your children how words and symbols are powerful and when used inappropriately can be deeply hurtful to others. And we will be conveying these messages in our classrooms as well. This message will be also going out this week because I know that not every parent has the opportunity to watch the video or come to the meetings. So we want to make sure that everyone is aware and that really there is no place for that. And if that is happening, you need to make us aware if you hear that. This concludes my comments.
Thank you, Dr. Cullis. I'm going to take this opportunity to open up comments to the board. If anyone has comments on Dr. Forte or Dr. Cullis's updates and comments.
I actually have a question, only because on my part of the agenda is, with the COVID cases, is that going to change the field trips that we're approving? Is it going to just be playing it by ear, or are they're on for now?
Yeah, the field trips are on for now.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to thank Dr. Cullis for her comments towards the end. Not that we want to hear them, but I appreciate the fact that the district is taking a active role in changing what we've seen recently. I know we've had a lot of discussions both, and not just related to that, but a lot more student concerns we've seen this year than we've probably seen in at least the entire time I've been on the board. So I know the district is there's a lot going on with everything, but I appreciate the fact that we're taking an active role and very not in standing up against either issues and making sure that our students have the supports they need to make sure they're making good decisions and become good citizens in the community. So I thank you, Dr. Cullis, and just let you know that, as one of seven, and that could probably speak for the entire board up here, that you have our support and we appreciate what you're doing.
And this is really the work of the RPSC, and we work closely with Denville Voices. So I appreciate the efforts of both of those committees, making us aware and having the opportunity to discuss the impact of some of these actions.
I'll just share that. I have a few comments I was going to give later with the committee updates. If I can just, I'll save it for then, if that's okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Cullis. I also just wanted to mention that I think that your statement kind of, and the work that the district has done, well, I think your statement summarizes the work that the district has been doing, but I think that it just accentuates, like you have pointed out to the board, when we've been concerned about seeing this higher number of cases of incidents with unrest among the students, that it's things that we're seeing all over the town, the state, and the country, and that we just have to continue to be aware of it. But I think that what the work that the administration and staff has been doing has been in place this year, last year, and I want to thank you for those efforts. Okay, on to business administrators' comments. Mrs. Gorowski.
No big comments, but I just want to say thank you to Mr. Lure and Mrs. Gould for their dedication to the district and their service. We really going to miss you guys, and good luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Laura, I apologize. Can I just ask Dr. Forte a question? Dr. Forte, I know we've had some recent changes with the state's Cali score, the COVID activity levels. Can you just talk a little bit about what that means for the district as far as the changes that means, in particular, I think the quarantine timelines, and really who kind of sets those timelines, and what the guidance we've been getting from the local health department and the state has been?
Sure. When we're in the orange, like we are now, we have to go under different guidelines. There's a document we posted on here a while ago and we've updated it when needed. And the big difference, like you said, is when the area is in a high transmission rate, close contact should be excluded from school for 14 days. Rather than the 10 days we had before. So our health department's already informed us that we need to move to the orange level quarantining method that we're working on that as of today.
So I guess, and I know this is not for you or our staff meant directed at, but I have to say we've had 0 cases of in-school transmission. We've had 0 cases, that means, of a kid being in our school that has gotten it from somebody in the school. We've quarantined hundreds of kids for being in the school, right? And once again, this is not for you or the staff. It's just when we follow the data and we look at it, I hope that the local health department and the state could start looking at things and saying, okay, kids aren't getting it from being in the school. They're not getting it from being on the bus. And I hope they don't, right? I mean, I want to be as precautious as possible, but it is a little bit frustrating that we continue to hold kids out now even longer, right? So we've had 0 kids catch it in school, so clearly the extra 7 days we're holding them out doesn't seem like it's going to do anything either. So it's unfortunate for the kids that have to be held out for an extended period of time, but it's just, I guess, a little bit of frustration on my side when I look at the data, and we look at the data, and it doesn't seem like we're catching it in the places where unfortunately having to quarantine kids. But I know listen, we've got to follow the direction of the experts, meaning the state and the health department, local health department, but I hope that message can be conveyed to them, that we would like to have them look at that data really closely and understand who are the kids we should be quarantining and staff, and who are the kids and staff that we don't need to quarantine, because it seems like we're continuing to quarantine a lot of kids, and I want to be precautious. Believe me, this is not meant to just say, I want to be, going against any CDC, New Jersey Department of Health, or local health department, but it is getting to the point where I hope we can get smarter in the way we're doing it and not just overarching. And I feel like as we switch into this orange level, I understand the concern. I understand the levels we got, but unfortunately, the reality is kids are getting it in other places, and including my family's been affected by it that has not gotten it in the school. They've gotten it from being out with their friends, sports, other activities. So I hope that we can get smarter at the way we're doing it. And like I said, directed to the local health department when you speak to them, hopefully we can kind of ask them for some more definitive guidance that makes sense.
So I did ask that the specific question, has anybody gotten it in have you traced anything back to one of our schools? And as of now, they said no. I think what's going on, though, is if you look at that dashboard in the state, there are now getting into the thousands of cases of in-school transmission. At least that's what they're saying. So, and another difficult thing is that there's different health departments for each town. So some have interpret the guidelines in a different way. So yeah, that's definitely causing some issues. But Mike, I think those are good points. And I'm on the phone with the nurses all the time in the health department talking about the quarantining and how to keep the schools open. And I do hope that we get to a point where we start to, figure out other ways, like you said.
So I think at this point, we are to the open public discussion for agenda items only. So it is 7:58 according to my watch, and I am going to open for our first public comment. Please note that this public comment section is for agenda items only. So if you see an item on the agenda that you would like to comment on, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, identify the agenda item that you would like to speak on, and you will be heard. And then I will tell you the purpose of our bylaw 0167, public participation in board meetings, is to recognize the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters. In order to permit the fair and orderly expression of such comments, the participants must preface comments by announcement of their name and place of residence. Statements may be made by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes duration, and no participant may speak more than once on the same topic until all others who wish to speak on the topic have been heard. All statements, questions, or inquiries shall be directed to the board president. So it's 7:58. If you have any comments that are related to the agenda, please come forward, state your name and address, and your agenda item number.
Michelle Zimmerman, 34 Shawnee Trail. Just a question with the quarantining. The virtual one-way is not working. My daughter was out for three weeks. They get far behind. Just having an hour of a teacher after school is not enough for them. Is there any way that the school is going to be offering tutoring for these kids outside of the school, free of charge for parents, to get our kids back to where they need to be? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Someone from the administration will get back to you. Does anyone have any other comments related to agenda items?
There are 2 in the email, but they're both for a second session.
The agenda items, the discrimination piece is part of that as well, right? The HIBs?
The HIBs are listed on the agenda, yes. So
Okay.
if you look under the education report, the cases that voted on are right there.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, because last time I did have something that was on the agenda, but I was told it wasn't. I'll read this next. Donna Marie Szynski, 64 Pierre Place. Hi. Sure, absolutely, go ahead. The discrimination, I think, has gotten absolutely worse. It's disgraceful, some of the things I've seen on Facebook these kids are doing. My daughter's complaining about the bathrooms being vandalized. I mean, one of the bathrooms was flooding into the hallway. It seems like it's just really out of control, and I think there might be a good reason behind it, and Dr. Cullis, I think you might agree with me here. We're discriminating against our kids in school. You guys are, okay? Medical discrimination, panic, anxiety, we're supposed to be stigma-free, okay? You guys are actually participating in the discrimination of our children. It's got to stop. It's got to. It's not right. You cannot sit there and only quarantine kids that are unvaccinated when the vaccinated not only get COVID, but spread COVID. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other comments related to agenda items at this time?
Can I ask a question? Would that include any comments that have already been made, any topics that were brought up already, or no? Would that be the later period?
So if there are members of the public here who are looking to make comments on Dr. Cullis's comments, which were Assistant Superintendent's comments, letter G of the agenda, please feel free to come forward now if you'd like. And also Dr. Forte's comments. So any comments that have already been made were agenda items, and if you want to make a comment about them, please feel free to do so at this time. You can also do it later as well. There will be a second public comment section. Does anyone want to come forward now and be heard? No? Okay. So it is 8:03. I'm going to close the first public comment section and move forward with the agenda. Moving on to old business, action to be taken. Mr. Capello, would you move us on to old business, please?
I would be happy to. If there are no objections tonight, I would like to move items A, B, and C. A are to approve the reports for November 2021 of the Treasurer of School Monies and Board Secretary. B are to approve the education reports, including report of student enrollment from November 2021, the report of the Health Office from November 2021, HIB case VV 21-2202, VV 21-2203, LV 21-2201, and the district calendar for 22-23 school year. And finally, we will be approving the minutes of our work session and executive session meeting of November 8th, and our regular session and executive session meeting of November 22nd.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Capello. Thank you, Mr. Cass. Comments, questions?
We had a conversation. Mr. Luer pointed out that there looked like there were extra days in the calendar when we reviewed it in the committee. I'm assuming that was a typo. Was that just a formatting thing in the calendar?
Yeah, I counted the last day of school as not a day, so it's fixed. There's built-in 5 snow days, and there's 1 extra day for the Memorial Day Friday if we needed it. So there's 6 days that could be used for snow if we need to. And also, I did speak with all the local superintendents in our regional, and it matches up to their contract. There's pretty close, not exactly, but as close as it usually does. Spring break is the same. The major things like that are the same.
Seeing no other comments, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Luer,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mrs. Gould,
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner.
Yes. And on to new business action to be taken. Personnel. Mr. Anderson, would you move us through that, please?
Sure. If there are no objections, I'd like to move under item number 4, new business, A, personnel, items 1 through 7 as a block. Those include our typical new hires, resignations, retirements, employee leaves, extra pay, salary adjustments under item number 1. Item number 2 includes the addendum to the contract for Dr. Forte. Item number 3 is to conduct some training for LDTC. Item number 4 includes a leave of absence for an employee. Item number 5 and item number 6 are contract addendums similar to item number 2, but these are for Dr. Cullis and Mrs. Gorowski. And then item number 7 is substitutes. I would point out under item number 7 on the addendum, there is 7, E as in Echo, F as in Foxtrot, and G as in Golf.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Thank you, Mr. Cass. Comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lure,
No on number 2, yes on the rest.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mrs. Gould,
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner.
Yes. On to instruction and programming. Mrs. Gould, would you move us through that, please?
Sure, if there are no objections, I move items 1 through 3, noting number 3 is on the addendum to the agenda. Item 1 is workshops with expenses for virtual math workshops for Lakeview and Riverview, and retroactively approve using guided math to catch up students who have fallen behind for Lakeview. Item 2 is approving the revised Expo curriculum units for grades 3 to 5. And item 3 is approving the attached list of field trips requests, which is a kindergarten trip to Rizzo's Wildlife Center, and grades 6 through 8, a workshop on the arts seminar at the Morris Museum.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Gould. Thank you, Mr. Cass. And
Yeah, it's virtual.
I'm sorry, I didn't, oh, it does. That's actually why I was surprised and wanted to clarify with the changes in COVID cases, so I apologize.
so other comments or questions?
I have a comment about or question about the field trip requests. I was looking at the spreadsheet. We previously approved the girls and boys soccer and the cross-country away games. We don't seem to have done the same for boys and girls basketball or wrestling. We should probably be consistent one way or the other.
Yeah, I saw your email. We're on it.
Thank you.
Seeing no other comments, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lure,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mrs. Gould,
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner.
Yes. Policy revisions, many up for first reading. Mr. Lure, would you mind moving us through policy, please?
Sure. I would like to move under policy item 1, which consists of 2, 4, 6, 8, a large number of policies for first reading and 4 policies to be abolished. Do I have to read them, or can I just say as per the, okay, as per the agenda?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lure. Thank you, Mr. Kim. And just for the folks who are hopefully watching this recording later on and the folks who are here tonight, Dr. Forte, where can these policies be found on the website currently?
Under the District Board of Ed, under policies, there's a that's where our bank of policies is, where Strauss Esme, and there's also a link that shows all the policies are up for review.
So those number of policies that Mr. Lure was referring to, you can review them at your leisure between now and the next meeting. They are only listed here for first reading. They will be read and adopted if approved during the second reading, which would be at the following Board of Education meeting. Seeing no other comments, roll call, please.
Sorry, hold on
Oh,
a second. I
sorry.
do have a comment. Policy 8600, there's a sentence, the one line says, "The board may provide transportation to and from school for public school students less than remote." I don't understand what that means. Can someone explain it to me? I understand that that's what the recommended language per Strauss Esme, but I don't understand it, and I'm not comfortable voting for something I don't understand.
Mr. Lure, those are recommendations from Astros SMA, the policy company, and basically what it says is that we are responsible to transport students. There's a mileage involved. Usually it's 2 miles. However, Denville transports everybody, every student.
Okay, so the board may provide transportation to and from school for public school students less than remote? I don't get what the less than remote part means.
I think he's
Denville,
questioning
for
the language.
example, is considered a hazardous town, and less than remote is 2 miles or less. But however, Denville transports every student in this district.
So if I may, Tamara, so you're saying that remote typically in this setting means less than 2 miles, or more than 2 miles, sorry. Not remote as in virtual, which maybe is where some confusion is. So greater than 2 miles,
It's considered remote.
is considered remote, and we would transport them, but within our district, every student is offered transportation. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And that's what the language means. I don't know if that helps.
The
Mr.
way
Moore.
I read that sentence was remote as in, we couldn't get a bus there. Right? Like, remote area of, like, which is, Dave's probably correct. We could probably adjust the wording in there to be a little bit more descriptive, or almost remove it, since our policy has been to transport all students. I don't think there's anybody that's remote that we don't transport, right? It may not be that they don't pick them up in front of their house. We pick them up at a location that would be acceptable, but
This is the recommended language, and it has been in place for many years, and all the districts as well has the same language. I did verify with a few districts, and they all have the same language. We can change it as a district, however, it has been in place for quite some time now.
Yeah,
So maybe, I mean, I'm looking at the language. So obviously, this is only required language if you provide courtesy busing, which we obviously do. So I think maybe if you can give us some clarity on the term remote, that there's a definition that exists in school transportation, that's a thing. I think that might help, because then, we understand what that means.
are you looking at our old language as well? Because I'm wondering what our old language was that it was changed at.
We'll look into that.
Thank
it's
you.
also a first reading, right? So we could make adjustments before second reading and adoption. Is that correct, Dr. Forte?
Yes, it is. I will look at it too.
Mr. Lure, are you comfortable with that?
It's probably right. It says exactly what it says in our current policy. It's just that if you want, like if the board members would like us to, we could define the word remote in the parentheses or something.
So actually digging down a little deeper, the word remote does appear later on, and it says this: the board will approve all bus routes each school year, bus routes for all non-remote students who must walk to and from school along hazardous routes, and goes on from there. So I'm beginning to get clarity on what remote means here. It does seem to mean a distance that you define from the school, right? I mean, that seems fairly clear.
And
now.
it's usually remote is more than 2 miles, which we are responsible to transport. In our case, we transport every student.
So maybe for full clarity, in parentheses next to remote in that policy, we put greater than 2 miles from the building?
Are we under a time crunch to get this one done?
No, but it's not going to be done until January 23rd, so we have plenty of time in the middle.
Because the other thing too is we don't approve bus routes anymore. We get rid of doing that because the state doesn't require that. So we need to fix that in here too.
We will.
Because I used to get this 20-page report of every street that the bus ran on, and no one ever looked at it. So we decided we weren't going to approve things that didn't make sense. So can we just, let's make sure we clean this one up, I guess. I don't know if it needs to go back to transportation or has to go there, or if we could just clean it up outside of the committee. But either way, we should just clean this one up. I think it makes sense.
We'll make sure it's all squared away by the end of the week.
So can we just pull it tonight from the, can we make a friendly amendment?
I would be okay with such a friendly amendment.
Mr. Cass, I believe you were the second. Are you okay with removing?
It was Mr. Kim.
Oh, it was Mr. Kim. I apologize.
So we're going to remove that policy from being approved for first reading tonight?
P 8600, yes.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Just to be clear, that'll extend this one. This one will then have to be first reading next time. Okay.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you putting up with me being particular about stuff like this.
Damaris, are you good? Do you need anything else from us before we vote?
No, we're good.
All right, if there are no other comments, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lure,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mrs. Gould,
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner.
Yes. Okay, on to finance. Mr. Kim, would you please move us through finance?
Sure, I'll be happy to. I move that we approve Section D, Finance, numbers 1 through 10 as a block. Keep in mind that number 10 is on the addendum, on the yellow page, where number 1 is the check, the 2 checks listed on the agenda. Number 2 is the approval of the amendment to the agreement with Delta Dental. Forgive me. Number 3 is to publish the advertisement of sale of 632 Chromebooks. Number 4 is to approve the attached quote from the Command Radio Communications. Number 5 is to approve the settlement agreement for a student. And number 6 is to approve the contract with CCL Therapy. Number 7 is to approve the contract with Fun Fit Therapy. And number 8 is to approve E-Rate Consulting and their consulting services. And number 9 is to approve the change order for the roofs on Lakeview. I believe it's for the galvanized ladders. And finally, number 10 is to approve the settlement contract for another student.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Thank you, Mr. Cass. Comments, questions?
Just a quick question. I apologize. I didn't ask it earlier. I actually just realized that I looked at this over the weekend and forgot to ask. On the radio purchase, I believe that's item number 4. I noticed Riverview and Valley View were all listed on there. Is Lakeview good with their radios right now? Is that why they're not purchasing more?
We purchased Lakeview last year, and we have a cycle. This coming year will be Riverview and Valley View, and the future year will be the garage transportation.
Got it. Okay. And the numbers are correct, right? Riverview has double the amount of radios that Valley View does? Is that just what they have now?
They are ordering a few more, especially Riverview, because they have 2 buildings.
2 buildings. Okay. Makes sense. Thank you.
The Chromebooks, are the sale of the Chromebooks, is this akin to when we have previously sold laptops where we've stripped all usable parts from them and they're effectively non-functional?
These are the Chromebooks that are not being used anymore due to just older. So any ones that we wanted to take the parts from, we did. These are the other ones. So we'll sell them whole.
Is this the kind of thing that's going to be basically offered as a block? This isn't like we're going to be offering, hey, anybody who wants to come in can put a bid on a single Chromebook and...
I hope not. No, it should just be going out as a bid, and people will come in and, bid a certain amount per unit, something like that.
It's a block sale for the
And
entire.
finally, we are currently providing a Chromebook to everyone in the district. Am I correct about that?
We have enough Chromebooks for every student.
Okay, so there's nothing to be gained by holding some of them back for special needs or people who are in financial distress or anything like that.
These are need to go. They're older
Okay, thank you.
Chromebooks, it's time.
It might be, it's probably a good idea to go into detail about the agreement with Delta Dental. James, do you want to do that, or do you want me to?
You can, certainly.
Okay, if I remember correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Damaris, I think, negotiated,
The broker did, the health
broker did,
insurance
okay.
broker.
negotiated an agreement where it would go up, is it 3% this year?
It will be 3% for the next 2 years. 2022 increased 3%, and 2023 will be 0%.
Thank you.
Sure.
Seeing no other questions or comments, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Lure?
Yes.
Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes. Moving on to operations. Mr. Cass, would you move us through operations, please?
I'm glad to. Under operations, we have items to move on the transportation and building and grounds. Starting with transportation, we have 2 items. The first one is that the board approve to award Truck King International for the purchase of 2 54-passenger school buses. And the second one on transportation is to approve to award H.A.D. Hart Son Incorporated for the purchase of 1 24-passenger school bus. Under buildings and grounds, the first item is for the board to approve Morris Knolls High School to borrow the Valley View Middle School wrestling mat for the holiday tournament coming up in the middle of December. It's great to see sports return to Morris Knolls High School, especially a sport like wrestling. And the second item is to approve the rental of Riverview School for Kids to Pros summer camp from June 27th to August 19th. This is the first time that this organization is going to be doing a summer camp at our schools. And we discussed it in the operations committee and the finance committee, and they do STEM, which is fantastic. Have something like that in our town for the kids to do over the summer.
Second.
You beat me.
Thank you, Mr. Cass. Thank you, Mr. Lure. Questions, comments?
Damaris, these 2, for the purchase of the buses, we're approving them today because we want to get them with those orders in early because of logistical and supply chain reasons. But these will be in the budget for next year, right?
No, they will be in the 21-22 school year purchase.
Okay, so we'll be purchasing them with our funds from this year. So this was not something that we approved in the budget last year.
That is correct.
Great. Thank you.
Might be important to just note that we're not actually going up in buses, though. Is that right, Damaris? Like, we don't now have, not going to have 3 extra buses. There's 3 that are aging out, correct?
Our buses expire, but we can only use our buses 15 years, and we have 3 buses that will be expiring in June 2022, 2 54 passengers and 1 24 passenger. We would like to get this order early enough because it has been a long time shortage of not just buses, but everything in general, including the radios. And as soon as we can place this order, we can at least guarantee to have them for the summertime.
Seeing no other questions or comments, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Lure?
Yes.
Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes. Okay, we have arrived at good of the cause. Committee reports, correspondence, and discussion items.
I have something to bring up before the board. Among my assorted duties in town, I'm on the Denville Recreation Committee, and lo and behold, we had somebody come to the public portion at our last meeting, and that was to bring up the town doing challenger yoga for special needs children and adults. And as some of you know, Hub Soccer does a challenger program in the fall. It was very well attended and successful this year. But some of our neighboring towns do a lot more in this area. I found out as a result of the parent that came in and pitched this to us that over in Rockaway Township, they do football, weightlifting, as well as soccer, basketball, and of course you have Morris County Challenger baseball. So the committee was very receptive to putting something together. So probably be on a Saturday, mid-morning, and the sponsorship is still TBD, possibly PAL, possibly the library, where adult yoga goes on. It's been virtual during the COVID, so I'm really glad to see that gaining some traction. And probably, we're all busy with the holidays coming up, but you take a look at what's being done in some of these other towns. Maybe that's something we could do in Denville. I know in Rockaway they have a specific board of directors for those challenger sports, so it'd be great if we could do something like that in Denville and have the kids participate in their hometown.
Thank you, Mr. Fass.
I was able to participate at the Hour of Code that occurred last week, and I was fortunate enough to go to Valley View and just to see the children coding, right in front of our eyes was truly astounding. I've seen kids create screensavers and other code from Minecraft or some other software or some games. So I'm really encouraged to see how well that program is. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to Lakeview because my appointment occurred on the day that there was a power outage. So I want to commend the administration and the teachers and the staff for running what I perceive to be as a successful Hour of Code campaign. And I was being told that also continues throughout the school year too for the children who are interested. So again, congratulations to everyone. That was awesome.
I have a committee report for the RPSE, the Equity Subcommittee, and a bit of a closing the term statement, if no one minds putting it in here. In November, the committee Responsive Practices for Student Equity met. Denville Voices for Racial Justice had requested to discuss what appeared to them to be a recent increase in the use of bias incidents and racial slurs occurring both in the schools and the community. The committee spoke about policies and procedures in the district to respond to such incidents, ensuring staff are adequately equipped to intervene, and how to be proactive with the students. Denville Voices has offered assistance if it's needed in any student groups or organizations that may be appropriate, such as in the student advisory at Valley View. I expect that this conversation will continue in the committee when it reconvenes in January. As my term ends at the end of the month, I want to thank this committee, and especially my co-host from the board, James, Mr. Kim, for their dedication and their time. I believe it's of great value to the district and community to provide a venue for group discussion between the two to better understand each other's viewpoints and learn what the district has done to ensure equity and how they can improve. I ask that whoever's the next board president and committee chair continues to have an open and honest conversation, and I look forward to participating as a community member. And as it's my last time up here, I wanted to express my gratitude to the whole board and the district for the past 3 years. This has been a very rewarding experience, and I learned just why our district is so strong. Despite having different personal stances, the board and district staff come together to focus on what's best for the students, for their health, safety, and education. It's been an interesting time the past 2 years with unique challenges with the pandemic and the awareness of racial-based incidents in 2020. I applaud the district staff, Dr. Forte and Dr. Cullis, for an excellent virtual program. maximizing safety measures for return to in-person, and keeping our students and staff as safe as possible. I also commend them on the focus of racial issues being addressed last year in staff professional development, and I know they have a strong interest in ensuring equity in our schools. And I also acknowledge that as a district and a community, we still have so much to improve. I want to emphasize to all the parents and the board members, there are paid campaigns spreading misinformation, leading parents to demand that CRT should be, critical race theory, should be removed from the curriculum when it is not taught in K-12, but in post-collegiate levels. I want to encourage parents and board members to continue their education from reputable sources and to use critical, logical thinking when making these incredibly tough decisions that affect the lives of our students and our community. There have been incidents of bias in and outside of our schools involving school-age children using racial and homophobic slurs. This is not acceptable, and it's up to all of us to ensure that we are, in fact, a stigma-free community. Our children are watching, and we are their role models. We must acknowledge our part in this and speak up when injustice is being done. Racism exists in every community, including our own. We must acknowledge our privilege and lean in to support marginalized communities, and it starts in rooms like these and with our friends and families. None of us up here can speak to what a student experiences in the district when they have a very different background than our own, to know where and when they feel supported or if they feel unsafe. Every child deserves to have a safe and secure school environment, and it's essential for learning. So thank you all very much, and thank you.
I've just got a few quick comments. Obviously, our last board meeting of the year, and a couple of things that come to mind. I mean, first of all, I just want to say thank you to the parents. It's been a tough year. It's been a tough couple of years, but the patience of everyone in the district has been much appreciated by the board, by the administration, by the staff. Even as recently as just last week, I guess it was, we had a power outage at Lakeview, and I think called school closed at the last minute, and I thought, oh God, I'm going to look on Facebook and we are going to get just reamed up and down. And there was so much understanding from the Lakeview parents. I mean, it was a last minute call on a quick decision, just a not something we could have probably predicted, but everybody was really patient. And I think that's what makes this community great, is that everybody kind of pitches in when needed. I know there were families that helped each other, and even last week they kind of chipped in and said, hey, I can watch your kid today so you can go to work. It's not been easy, and I can promise you that this board, this district, we don't always make the perfect decisions. We don't always make the right decision, but we do the best we can to try to make the right decision, and we always correct ourselves if we think we're making the wrong decision. And I agree with a tremendous amount of what Katie just mentioned in her comments. I thank Katie and Dave for their dedication, their service to the community and the students of this town. I thank Laura and Dino for their leadership this year. It's not been an easy year, and they've stepped up tremendously to be here for the students, like I said, in the community. So I thank everybody for being here for us, and hopefully 2022 brings a lot healthier and better year, but I appreciate everybody's support throughout the year.
I'd just like to say that I have greatly enjoyed working with the people who have been on the board and in the administration over the last 6 years. I won't say I've enjoyed the actual work, but I've enjoyed the people a great deal that I've worked with. So thank you very much.
Just a couple of comments. I actually met someone in town who does work for transportation companies. He does large analysis of bus transportation for the likes of New York City. He said that the recent infrastructure bill has a tremendous amount of money focused on electric buses and electric infrastructure for fleets. It's something we should consider taking a look at. There may be some opportunities to leverage our fleet into electric buses. He says that's certainly the way the larger fleets are going, and eventually it probably will trickle down to smaller fleets like one in Denville. So something we may want to keep an eye on. I was also at the Hour of Code with James. It was a lot of fun. I was with Mrs. Andrea's class. I missed Lakeview's as well for the same reason, unfortunately. But it's always great to see what the kids are doing. I had a couple of kids in the class I was in that were doing independent projects, just totally on their own. Decided to create a game and just went off on his own and just started doing it. So it was very cool to see. So, and last thing is, I do want to thank both of you, Katie and Dave. Sorry, Katie and Dave. We make a joke. We make a joke when you first join. We tell usually your family's in the audience. Thank you for lending us your spouse for the next 3 years. That's actually true. You spend a tremendous amount of time, not only here, but offline, a tremendous amount of intellectual capital. It is a commitment. It's a commitment to the students of Denville, to the parents of Denville, to the whole community, and it's not one we should make light of. I also want to thank Laura for being president for the last 2 years, two of probably the toughest years that I've been a board member. So I appreciate your leadership, and I appreciate everyone here. You've done a tremendous job. I'm honored to be a board member with you all, and I want to wish Katie and Dave well in whatever you do next. Thanks.
Thank you, Dino, and I want to say it's all your fault.
Yes, and I just want to echo Dino's sentiments to wish Katie and Dave well wishes, and thank you for the tremendous amount of time that you've put in with the board. And these last 2-3 years have not been the easiest, but thank you for your time. And it'll be interesting to see what you do with all that free time. So thank you and enjoy.
Want to thank the members of the public coming to tonight's meeting. Have a happy and safe holiday.
Thank you, Mr. Cass. Okay, with that, we are down to, do you want to do our highlights?
How is Dr. Cullis' statement? Mr. Lure, Mrs. Gould, last meeting, thank you for your service, and the district calendar for 22-23 has been approved.
I think those are great. Okay. With that in mind, it is 8:38. I am going to open up the second public comment section. This public comment section is on any topic that you wish. Can we try out this timer now? We have a new timer, just so that everybody can see the time that we're keeping. We ask you to keep your time to 3 minutes, so bear with us as this is the first meeting using it. And apparently Mr. Capello feels comfortable with it, to turn it on so that we're on the same page. So if you have a comment for the board, please come up, state your name and address, and you'll be heard. We ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. The paragraph that I read that's in the agenda still holds true, and I just ask you to remember that this is not a back and forth session. This is just for you to make a public comment if you choose to do so.
Hi, my name is Kim Lure, 9 Wildwood Terrace in Denville, and I just really want to thank this board for everything they've done, not just during COVID, but over the last 5 years that we've been involved with Valley View School. There was quite a lot that happened in these years that I would have never expected to happen in this town, going back to when we needed a new principal. And that could have been so much worse than it was, and the quick action by this board to keep the media away from the children was amazing. And I'm sorry I never got here before to say this, but with our children's dance schedule and him being here all the time, it just didn't happen. But thank you for that, because even through all of that, I never had any doubts that the children would be safe and away from the media with all of that going on. And through this entire pandemic, I have friends in other towns in this county, other counties in the state, and other states across the country. And anytime we've discussed what the schools were doing, every single one of them said, oh my God, I wish my district did that. You guys really know what you're doing, and the kids are safe, and they're actually in the buildings, and that's amazing. Because mine haven't left the house in 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, 12 months, whatever it was. So the fact that you found a way to get our children back into the schools 5 days a week for the entirety of last school year, and now back to full days in school this year, it just means so much to us. When the pandemic started, our son would not go outside because he didn't understand how far 6 feet really was. So he just wouldn't go outside at all. And when we started talking about what the school district had planned for the distance, we finally pulled out a tape measure and showed him. And when we told him the plans for what the school year was going to be, he said, oh no, they're going to do that, then I feel safe and I'm going to go. And it just melted my heart that was, that was because of all of you. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you did. And I that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Mrs. Laura. Are there other members of the public that wish to come up? If you do, please just sign in and identify yourself, name, address.
We have 4 in the email, 3 are from the same person.
Let's just see if we have any other comments here in person first.
Good evening. Name's Jeff Heimbeck, 10 Wilson Ave, Denville. Just want to echo what everybody said. You guys are doing a wonderful job keeping our schools open, getting our kids to and from. My only question is, it's more, I understand the close contact, I understand the COVID protocols. What I can't wrap my head around, and a bunch of my friends, is the bus quarantines. You're telling me that we can be in the school with masks on, safely away, but as soon as we put those kids on the bus, it's not the entire bus, it's maybe the kid next to them, in front, in back, but not diagonally. I guess my question is, where did the bus quarantine come from? Where did that guideline come from? Is that ours? I haven't heard of any other districts that are doing it. Just trying to explain it to my kids, players, everybody else that gets affected by it. More or less, is there alternate routes? Can we run 2 different bus routes? Maybe an A route and a B route? Who's taking attendance for those kids? You know, are we putting that on the bus driver? That's a lot of stress. You know, as they come into school, is the school nurse getting off, hey, watching every kid? Maybe I drive my kid to school in the morning, but after school, myself or my wife is unable to pick our kids up, so they take the bus home. You know, I just want to make sure that that quarantine, now that especially we're going to, it's 14 days, correct? So now that we're going from 10 days to 14 days, you know, your first comment was we want to keep the kids educated. We saw that technology can fail. And I know my daughter's been under one of the quarantines right now, and everything is being done to the best of the teacher's ability in these trying times. But, you know, when technology does fail as a 6th grader, they really struggle. You know, they're maybe hour and 20 minutes, and then it's like, all right, what can we do? Can we go outside? Can I get you some exercise? You know, email your teacher, ask. And it's not always the teachers, they're under enough stress. Sometimes it's the technology. So I just wanted to know, is the bus quarantine something that's going to continue? I understand close contact in the school, but like Mr. Anderson said, it hasn't been traced back to the schools. I don't know if it's been traced back to buses. I know there's been incidents where, you know, a child's on the bus, or I'm sorry, in school, they've been tested positive, and then we bus quarantine. But I don't want to see this happen. You know, my daughter will come home and be like, well, that kid sits right next to me in class. How come I'm not quarantined? So it's just, they say trust the science. I'm not seeing the science on that one. So thank you guys again. You guys have done a wonderful job thus far, and I appreciate everything you're doing forward.
Thank you for your comment. Dr. Forte, do you feel like this is something that you can partially answer at this time?
Yes. So the bus quarantine is basically the same as the in-person school, except for the fact that the children on the bus are within 3 feet of each other. So if you're on the same seat with somebody, if you're in a seat behind or in a seat in front, you are within 3 feet. And that's where the 3 feet, that's the 3-foot rule comes from. There is a rule about 15 minutes though. So I know you live pretty close to the school, so if your kids only go one way, make sure the nurse understands that your child was only on the bus for maybe 10 minutes instead of 15 minutes. I think from Valley View, you're probably 15 minutes, but from Riverview, you guys are closer. So you see what I mean? Like, it's possible your child might not be on the bus for 15 minutes. And that's where the 3 feet within 15 minutes comes from.
Are we saying 15 minutes round trip, one way?
It's 15 minutes in a 24-hour period.
So just for clarification, it'd be the kid directly across, directly behind, directly in front, but not diagonally?
Not diagonally. No, we measured it all. So it worked out to be 3 feet unless you're sitting next to the person or the seat in front or back.
One last question. I know my kids sit together because they're family, but I've heard from other bus routes that kids that are family members, they're not in assigned seats, and that's been kind of an issue. So is that something that's looked into? Is there assigned seating on the bus? And again, I hate to put more on the bus drivers. They got enough to worry about. What can we do? My basic thing is this really going to continue, the bus quarantine, or is that something that possibly, we open all the windows, or is there another way? I know purchasing more buses is completely out of the loop, but maybe be, like I said, a second route. I'd rather my kid miss 30 minutes of instruction because they got dropped off 30 minutes later than be out for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I understand. Let me give you a call tomorrow and maybe pick your brain a little bit, okay?
Thank you very much, and happy holidays to you. I just want to clarify that the bus guidelines that the administration is following for you, sir, and for all the members of the public that are here are the same guidelines that have been given to us by the Department of Health. And it's not, I can't speak to what other districts are doing, but it's no different than bus versus the classroom. But like you said, in the classroom, those seats are measured specifically. So thank you for your question. Are there other members of the public who have questions or comments at this time? Please come forward, identify yourself.
Laura, can I just add something while we have the next member of the public coming up?
Sure.
Just with regard, and I've had a lot of contact with Dr. Forte about kind of conversations, because we've had similar questions from the public on bus quarantines and whatnot. And just to clarify, and Dr. Forte, keep me honest here, whenever there's questions about should we or should we not quarantine, those are run through the local Department of Health. Right? Is that correct? And that's typically where if there's any sort of question or anything, and they're kind of the ones that are setting the, yes, we should quarantine this person or not quarantine, or what should be the policy as far as quarantining. Is that correct?
So we don't call them for every one. Like, for example, we have 94 people quarantined the other day, but we call for like a new instance, right? Like something that we didn't talk about before. And then we also talk when the things, like right now, we moved to the orange, so we called about that. So when in doubt, we call them. Does that answer what you mean? Yeah, when in doubt, we call them.
But for instance, on the bus situation, I'm sure in the beginning, this was a conversation with the Department of Health, and they said, yes, if they're within 3 feet on the bus, then this would be the case. Is that correct?
Yes, and I was on a few calls when that came up. So even this last one where we had last week, that came up again.
We're ready for your comment if you're ready.
Melissa Keenan, 71 Woodstone Road. On the last community update that Dr. Forte sent out, it said that the COVID testing that's supposed to be on site was, if I understood this correctly, not for anyone with symptoms. Maybe you could speak to that if that's correct and why that would be. That's all. Thank you.
Dr. Forte, do you feel like that's a question you can answer at this time?
Yeah, it's a surveillance screening, so it's not meant for people with symptoms to come in. So, we don't want to bring symptomatic people from outside into the school.
Okay. Is there any possibility, like for example, my daughter went to the nurse, she had a headache and said her throat hurt. So then she had to quarantine until she got a negative COVID test. In that instance, like, is there any possibility that a student like that could get tested at the school facility? I mean, we had to wait 3 days to get test results back, and that's just lost time of school.
Go ahead.
Yeah, our test results take at least 3 days as well. So it's not meant for people who are exhibiting symptoms. To bring in people who are sick into the school is what we're trying to avoid. But if you want, I can give you a call tomorrow to talk a little more about it.
And it's only administered once a week. It's good to remember that. It's only administered once a week, not on a daily basis.
Yeah, and just to clarify, sorry if it's okay, Mrs. Wagner, Dr. Forte, that's not testing that our nurses do, correct? That's an outside company that comes in and does it, so it's not something that any of our staff administer.
Yeah, it's an outside lab that the state set up for us with the federal money, and it's meant for the staff. We took the federal money, so we had to open it up to students as well. So it's for all staff, volunteers, and students if they like.
Would you mind reading the comments that you have from online?
Sure,
These were
I have.
emailed in, just to be clear, because our online system unfortunately is not working right now, but these were emailed in prior to the meeting.
I have 3 comments from the same person. I'll read the first one, and then you can open it up, see if there's other comments. This is from Lauren Jarger from 8 Thompson Road, Denville. Why does the superintendent consider our schools to be just barely able to stay open? Is there a number of students or faculty quarantining or currently infected that would warrant a shutdown? If so, what is that number? If students are fully vaccinated, should there be an in-person option available to them? So I answered the first part in my opening statements that we were experiencing very high numbers last week, but so far this week things are a little bit better. There is no magic number, but it does depend on how many are unlinked and possibly could be linked to the school. And then if students are fully vaccinated, shouldn't there be an in-person option available to them? I'm not really quite sure what that means, so I'll follow up with her.
And just for clarification, that's from the same community member?
That was all in the same question. So I have 2 more emails from her. And do you want me to read the other 2?
If they were emailed in and meant to be read, if they were emailed directly to you for you to answer, then no. But if they were emailed to you to read during the public meeting, then yes.
Yeah, they're in the Board of Ed meetings comment question email. Is there quarantine period still only for unvaccinated kids? Recently, an entire class at Lakeview quarantined and had to go virtual. What is the protocol for going forward now that there are fully vaccinated students? So right now, the guidance from the Department of Health is that if you are vaccinated and you are a close contact, you are a contact and you're asymptomatic, you do not have to quarantine. If you're symptomatic, you do. And then an entire class at Lakeview quarantine had to go virtual. There were a few cases in the one class. Can't really mention any more than that.
But hold on, Steve, I just want you to pause for 1 second. Dr. Forte, sorry, but they're talking about a class at Lakeview. I don't know, and I don't know if anybody here recalls exactly when vaccinations for the younger group that became available started, but fully vaccinated would be 2 doses and then 2 weeks. So in all likelihood, and they're not here to have the question asked to them, but in all likelihood, none of those students were able to be fully vaccinated at that time.
I really can't comment anymore due to some just privacy concerns. There's one more from Lauren Jarger. Lakeview just had a day off because the electric and heat were not working in portion of the building. Did that count as a use of Lakeview snow days? I'm glad she brought that up because I had it on my comments. I must have overlooked it. So there was a power outage that it was a different kind of power outage. It didn't shut all the power off to the building. It shut like half the power off to the entire building, which I didn't even know could happen. But basically, instead of having 110 volts and everything, we had 60. So some of the things could come on, like a LED light could light, but like the furnaces and things like that couldn't light. Our technology couldn't work. So because Lakeview now is not in sync with the other 2 schools, Lakeview will have to make up a day. The day that I have, the day in my mind right now, if we have a fairly mild winter, I should knock on something. we would, when at the end, when we remove some of the snow days, when we close schools to give back the days, Lakeview would have to do one extra day. If that doesn't work, they'll have to go on the Friday before Memorial Day. That's also a built-in day that can be used for snow. And if we have to use all of those, then unfortunately, they'll have to go one extra day in June. That would be the plan right now. Obviously, as we progress through the winter, I'll make a final decision on that based on information with the principal and the staff. But as of right now, the most likely scenario would be that Lakeview would have one extra day at the end when the other schools are closed for snow days.
Dr. Forte, this is a question off the cuff, but can you remember in your time here with us that we've used all the snow days aside from maybe Sandy?
So I was before Sandy. I was in Verona at the time, and we used a lot there and had to take some. You had the same thing here. We did have a time here where we used all of them. We've had some rough winters. We could have the same thing again. I don't want to have that in the back of my mind. Definitely, I want to take the safety of the students and staff as the most important thing and not worry about that too much. I don't want to say anymore because I think we're going to jinx ourselves. Hopefully there's a day that we can do and not have to add a day at the end.
There was definitely one year, Laura, that we had, there was a debate on Saturday coming in. I don't think we ended up having to do that, but we used every single day. I think there's other districts that, there was a debate at one point on reducing the amount of snow days. I know that was a very heated debate at one year, going down to 4 snow days, and we kept 5 in. The one year I remember was that ice storm. That was the big one, because we lost like 2 or 3 days from the ice storm, and that was October. So that stinks when you lose that many days in October.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we had to take a Friday of spring break once.
Yes, we did.
I know we did it.
definitely
I know I
did.
did it in Verona, but I think we did it here too.
Yes, yeah.
My wife and Parsippany went in on a Saturday. That was fun. That was the same year.
Let us note that Denville didn't do that. Thank you.
There's one more comment. This is from Tyler Barth of the TAP. He does not provide his address.
He's with the press.
He's asking an easy question we should talk about anyway, but he's asking, will the 12/13 meeting be recorded? The answer is yes. It will be recorded and posted.
That gentleman emailed in during the lack of YouTube live stream. Is
Yes,
that
he
what you-
did, and he did it through the comments email.
Wow, that was very brilliant of him. So yes, well, not that anybody at home can see me, but yes, this will be recorded and it will be posted. Are there, yep, come on up.
Andre Zadelis, 3 King Hill Court. I have a 4th grader and a 3rd grader at Lakeview. This question is really for Dr. Cullis. So thank you for your opening remarks. My phone just shut off. Thank you for your opening remarks regarding the incidents of discrimination here in Denville. Could you expand on how this is addressed with the children? I'm sure there are age-appropriate conversations occurring, but if you can give an example, greatly appreciated.
Dr. Cullis, do you feel like that's something you can answer at this time?
Just to follow up with that, if I do get that information through a phone call, is there a way to share that with the larger community, or is there opportunity for us to learn more about this?
Absolutely. We do have an upcoming series of workshops that will be starting February, March, and April, and that will be publicized shortly. We have a series of parent, one with dating, one on how to raise race-conscious children, and then one on it's another diversity workshop that I'm working on with Mr. Stanton. So we have a series of parent workshops. We used to have a parent advisory for student success, Academy for Student Success, and it would run every year, but the last couple of years, we have not been able to run it. I think we only had like the one meeting about the middle school was the only past meeting that we had. But we used to run a whole series of parent workshops every year, and so those are the 3 that we're planning on bringing back for this year. In addition, we also have one on suicide. So we have 4, because I forgot about the Ryan story. So we have 4 planned coming up after the winter break. Now, I can say that it is written into our curriculum, but when you say examples, I want to show you, like, what does it look like in kindergarten? What does it look like in 3rd grade? Because it does look different from what obviously the middle school gets into, and also where it fits in our curriculum. So that I can definitely talk with you about that and make that public. They can see our curriculum, but also some of the neat things that we're doing right now. In fact, one of the activities the students doing, the parents are going to do at one of those workshops, but we wanted to not do it with the parents first because we really needed the kids to do it from the kids' perspective before the parents talked about it with them, because it really needed to be from the kids' voice. But I think you'll enjoy that one. So that will be coming out.
Ken Wemp, 183 Shangam Road. Just to kind of follow up on that conversation, I commend the Board of Ed and the schools on doing the workshops and so forth, and the comments that have been made about denouncing, discrimination and bias and things like that. But with respect to the things that have recently happened, is the intent to make a public statement to the schools and the parents that denouncing this, that this is a, safe school district, that these things won't be tolerated, et cetera? I know we've kind of said that here, but I don't know if that the intent is to communicate that clearly and concisely to the students and the parents.
So, first, if you don't mind, I'm going to answer and then I'll defer to the administration. I think that, first, I think the curriculum here speaks for itself in Denville. I think that the partnership that the administration and staff has done with several committees to ensure equality and mental health is remarkable. And I think that you'll see, as Dr. Cullis was speaking with the last member of the public, there's many examples that that's throughout the curriculum and the children's day-to-day activities. The other thing is Dr. Cullis's statement during her remarks tonight were for public, and unfortunately they were not live streamed, but they will be shared in the Friday folder. Is that right, Dr. Forte?
Yes, it'll be shared in the Friday folder and posted online.
So they'll be shared in the Friday folder. They're here at our public meeting, and they will be shared online. So as far as more public statement than that, I don't know if you feel that that's satisfactory, but I think that that speaks a lot to where the district and the administration feels that this is important, and those are the public statements that we've made to date, aside from all the work that the district has done with the staff, students, and community. Dr. Cullis, Dr. Forte, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I was just going to add, based on our last meeting, after that meeting, I contacted the high school because they do have a social justice club. So we're trying to work with them. I'm in contact with the advisors at this point. We're trying to organize something where we might have a panel from the high school to come down and talk with our middle school students. That would really just be for middle school, but we're trying to work out what would that look like, particularly to send the message from a closely aged peer, but older than them, of how hurtful those comments and what those comments mean. Because a lot of our middle schoolers are just really not fully aware of the depth of what some of the things that they say and do. And so we're attempting to get someone that they can relate to, but could really just talk with them about these things. So that's from our Morris Knolls high school. So that's what we're working on, but that, I don't have a date for that yet. But that came out of our work from the committee.
Thank you. If there are other members of the public who would like to speak or be heard, please come forward. Dr. Forte, I'm assuming you're still monitoring.
Yes, and there are no further emails.
Would anyone else like to be heard at this time? Sure. There's no one else speaking, so you're certainly welcome to speak again.
Andrea Zadelis, 3 King Court. I just want to encourage the board to not view the curriculum or the way that things are going with rose-colored glasses. I've been part of this community for the past 8 years. My children go to school here. It is, you know, what you guys do is incredible, and I commend you. It's not easy. I know it's not easy. But I do want to encourage you to take into account the privilege of which you sit and the way that the community is experiencing a lot of the discrimination and the effects, not just on the children, but on the community at large. So yes, Denville is wonderful. Denville has done really great things. The curriculum is terrific. We moved out here because of it. But there are underlying issues. There are incidents that occur. And as leaders in the community, you know, I just encourage you to, and I know you do, you have the doctor and the PhDs. I know you do. I know you understand this. But I really just want to encourage you to take that into consideration when you are, you know, speaking with the public and trying to hear us. I do appreciate that you're working with Denville Voices. I do appreciate that the social justice group in the high school is also getting involved. A lot of that comes from the community members bringing that up. So perhaps what I'm trying to say is if you could be a little bit more proactive in the types of way that we support marginalized voices in our community, that would be appreciated. And I just wanted to get that off my chest. So thank you.
Thank you. Sir, feel free to come up and identify yourself. If you're both, you know, you can both be heard. There's plenty of time.
My name is Bob Grant. I live at 114 Ridgewood Parkway East in the Lake Arrowhead section. I just want to urge the board to look down the road a little bit. There's been a couple of instances of racist graffiti in the town on the schools. There have been some folks who showed up here who were very unhappy with the masking requirements. And these people are beginning to organize. And a couple of the towns around here have had a much more difficult time than Denville. In Montville, 3 incumbents came very close to losing their positions on the Montville Board of Education because of the anti-mask, anti-woke, in my view, anti-humanity point of view of these people. So it hasn't really come to Denville yet, but I think you need to take a very aggressive stand as to what's taught in the schools, what isn't taught in the schools, and the zero tolerance for any sort of racial epithets and derogatory comments. The Mountain Lakes Republican Club has published a Facebook page that is cherry-picking comments by various leaders around the country that seem to indicate that everybody that critical race theory is being taught in the schools, that it's corrupting the youth and so forth and whatnot. So I think it would be a very, very wise move to look down the road, anticipate the kinds of attacks that are going to come, and kind of gird your loins for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to be clear, the district decided to buy something called ice cream clock. So I just want to say, if there's a decision we made that wasn't right, there was this one to buy this clock. So I just want to say, I don't like this clock at all.
Jerome Clark. I live at 8 King Hill Court. I appreciate your statement at the beginning of the meeting, Dr. Cullis, with what's going on as far as the school district with the racist comments and writing on the walls. I guess, you know, part of my concern is this something that can be made as like a public record to be put out for the parents to see that these complaints are coming in? I kind of felt like I was hearing of these incidences going on, and if I wasn't in certain groups or around certain people, I wouldn't even know about it. And I know you guys are going to put something out on Friday, but is there something where we can keep like a public record to let parents know, like transparency, that these things are occurring and do occur, because that will make a conversation happen at their home. I do feel like the reason why a lot of these things keep going on around it is because conversations aren't being had. And my daughter, who's 5, just turned 6, actually asked me a question, why don't people like Rosa Parks, which is because she was black? And I couldn't believe she asked that at 5. So I tried to explain that in 5 minutes, which turned into a 2-hour conversation that I had to actually get a globe because questions just kept coming and coming and coming. But I think all this needs to be discussed in homes with our kids. I think that if we hear about this when it happens, and not later, but like right when it happens, you know, not months past, or I think that will start to make a difference. It's silence equals compliance in certain situations, and I'm glad to hear that the board has no tolerance for racism or any bigotry of any kind in our district. So I just want to, you know, thank you for that comment, your statement at the beginning, but I do have a question. If we can get something like a public record to know that, hey guys, these things are happening, go ahead and look for the parents to see that all this is going on. So thanks.
So I'm going to turn it over to the administration in 1 second, but I think that the administration is going to have some answers for you about privacy issues. So, and I'll let them speak to that, but I just wanted to be clear that there are rules and regulations that the board has to follow for privacy issues for students as far as complaints are concerned. So there's not always the I think that sometimes it might appear that the board is, or the district is attempting in some way to hide something, but it's about following the rules and regulations that the board must follow, and that has been set forth. So that, if Dr. Cullis or Dr. Forte want to speak to that, please do so.
So I made a note to speak to Dr. Cullis about this tomorrow. We'll have a conversation, see what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do. Typically, if it's a discipline issue, like where we know who did something, we probably can't make that public because it's the student record, but we'll have a conversation about it and see what kinds of things we can do going forward.
Is there an investigation involved in that? Like, you say there's rules and regulations. Is there somewhere where the parents, where we can read the rules and regulations to see exactly what's being done? Because it doesn't have to be a student. It could be anybody in the school. That's nowadays. You know, what I mean, it could be, I don't want to say it, but it could be like a teacher, janitor, whoever who went in there and wrote it, and something was going on. Like I understand that you can't speak on it when it comes to the kids, but putting that out there, we're not asking for a name. I just think when it's an incident that happens, I just feel like it should be taken seriously. I'm not saying you guys don't take it seriously. That us as parents and myself, I would rather know what was going on in the moment than to find out later that something has been happening. Because if my daughter came home and, you know, she's so sensitive and say, hey, you know, I was called this word or this word is happening in Riverview or Lakeview or wherever, I would be pretty upset. So, and I think a lot of parents, you know, need to know. So that's what I'm saying.
So I don't know if this is specifically answers your question, but there, and I'm sure you're familiar with the harassment, intimidation, and bullying policy that the district has, and that's statewide. And that outlines not only, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Forte or Dr. Collis, not only a complaint against, it doesn't limit it to students, but that would be a complaint of anything that happens within district buildings, or can be related back to students attending school. So that policy is in place and is available online for you to view at any time, and those guidelines, and there's also the reporting guidelines and the investigation and the timeline that's set forth and what is classified as falling into that category and what is not. So that is something that the public can have access to and does have access to now.
I think one thing we can do, at the elementary level, the kids are pretty open about when they see things, they'd say it. And we can work more on encouraging our middle schoolers, because it can go on for a length of time before we ever know about it, right? They're pretty good at, you know, covering things and we don't hear about it until it gets a few people down the line. But I think we can do more to really encourage them. Again, I think with that high school panel is going to show them it's really important to tell these things so that we can do something about it, and not just, they get really worried, oh, we don't want to get our friends in trouble and so forth. Like I said, the elementary, they're pretty open about if they see things, they tell. It's starting to get to the middle where we don't hear about it right away, and it takes a few people telling friends down the line before someone comes to tell us. I mean, we see it if it's written on the wall or something like that, but if it's verbal, that gets challenging. But I think there's work that can be done there with, you know, just encouraging them to do that. I appreciate that. And just another comment along, just with what I'm saying. We, you know, a lot of these things, I just want you to know that we're working a lot behind the scenes that maybe people don't realize, and that's why we tried to share with the community. Even before the committee was formed, we knew what some of the issues were. Just the looking at our books about the number of own voice authors and who are the characters, we knew. And it took us a few years, and we invested just this year $36,000 because we knew that was something important. So we've been working on these for a few years behind the scenes, again with the professional development with their staff, a lot on how to have these conversations, because it's not, as much as we'd like it to be just easy for them to have the conversations, it's not always, those words are not always there. They don't know, okay, if someone says this, do we just ignore it? Do we just say, don't say that? Or how do we have the conversation? So it has been hours of PD on this, because it's not just the racial, it's also how do we talk about if a student has a homophobic slur, how do they do it if they have a religious slur? There's a lot to it. So we have been working on those things, and we have contracted for the next 3 years with these organizations. So we've been doing it for last 2, and we have 3 more. So we know that it's ongoing. We're working really hard to get those conversations and really start where the bias starts. You know, we're trying to hit the root of the issues and not just be reactive. We really are growing these programs. Sometimes it is reactive because an incident comes up, but we really are starting with kindergarten up with this. You know, we've looked at all of our curriculum, all of our forms, everything. It's just that maybe it's not as visible, you know, to the public yet.
Laura, can I make a quick comment? Just, I think that the last few comments, I mean, particularly Mr. Clark's comment, I think about, hey, we need to encourage families to have the conversation at home. And I think that this is one conversation. We're also having conversations about violent incidents we've had in the school, higher HIB reports and investigations than we've seen in the past. A lot of these are tied together and maybe not tied together, but the bottom line is I think there is a lot that we do on the board, a tremendous amount, even more that's done by the administration. And I think sometimes we may not realize how little gets out to the public. And I understand there's a line on privacy, on appropriate communication, but I think it's okay for us to say, hey, guys, this is what we're doing, right? And I think it's probably a good time to make sure we're getting the word out, but also more importantly, this is what we need from the public. We need them to partner with us to make sure they understand that we're all in this together, right? We are a great community, like Miss Idalis said, right? We're a great community, but we're not perfect. And this is what's going on, because Mr. Clark, I think his comment hit me, because I think the reality is that there's a lot of people in the public that don't know this is happening, and they need to open that conversation with their kids, because they may not realize that their kids are either involved in it or hearing it, and they can step in, right? If we've learned anything in the last 2 years on many of the incidents that's happened, it's the people, not just the people that are doing the inappropriate action, it's the people around them that need to stand up and say something. So if we can get that dialogue going so more people can have that conversation with their families, both the parents in the family and the adults in the family and the kids in the family, I think it's important. If guys, it's not going to work for everybody, right? And that's okay. But if it works for one family, I think that's worthwhile. And I think it's worthwhile for us to have the conversation on how we can do that appropriately and how we can start a dialogue with the community a little bit more. So I appreciate the comments from everybody, Mr. Webb, Mr. Clark, Ms. Idalis. It's really appreciated, and it means a lot to me. So thank you.
Do you mind if I add on? Because actually, Mike, you said something that kind of struck, and I think you crystallized it for me from some of the comments, and thank you everyone for making those comments. In a way, I think we on the board, you know, not that we are the problem, but I think to Mr. Zadelis' point is that we have rose-colored glasses. We all moved to this community because we thought it was incredibly accepting, you know, a good community where everybody is kind to each other. I think that's generally true, but I think on the board, especially when we've heard about these incidents, we've all, as a group, been shocked by them. And I think that shock hasn't really worn off. So we felt like these are one-off incidents or these are isolated. They're not. They're clearly not. And I think to Mr. Anderson's point is to put it out there, what we're doing and the shock we feel and what we're trying to do and what we're seeing is important, because it shows that these aren't just one-off incidents. They aren't, you know, isolated. They're more than that. And I think we've had trouble, or, you know, again, I don't want to speak for the board, but I think I've had trouble recognizing that there's patterns or there's things that have happened more than just one time. So, you know, I just want to say from my own perspective, you know, I want to try to do better there. I want to try to understand that these are things that are happening, maybe are likely to continue to happening, and that we should try to do better to make sure that we interact with the community as, you know, as transparently as possible. So that's all I have to say.
Just one or two quick things. I just want to really recommend that you can approach the district staff without having to come to the meeting as well. You don't always have to wait for this. If you want to have a conversation, they always invite questions. You can call them or email them. And the other thing I noticed about HIB cases that we reviewed is often if there's no witness, it wouldn't be HIB because there's no witness, and so they can't verify what happened. So it's also important, even if kids aren't involved, but it happens around them, for them to speak up, so.
Does anyone else from the public want to speak?
No emails.
So it's 9:26. I am going to close the second public comment section. And do we have a need for an executive
Yes, we do.
for?
We have a need for a private session due to legal matters.
So just to be clear, we are going to vote to go into executive session. There will be no voting after this, so there will be no further public portion of the meeting. So again, thank you all for coming. Happy holidays, and I'll take a motion to move into executive.
I would like to move to convene an executive session in accordance with Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this closed session will be to discuss legal issues. Minutes of this session will be made available to the public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? We are in executive session at 9:27.